Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Every Musician Needs to Watch This Video. I've never really had a title like that before, but it seems, clickbaity enough to draw them in, don't you think? And why do I want to draw them in? Why do I want every musician to come and watch this video? Well, it's because of certain realizations I've been having recently about the music industry or the lack thereof, right? So if you're a musician, sit down, get yourself a cup of tea, and you might find some of this video quite useful. So there is no music industry anymore. It doesn't exist. And if you're trying to break into the music industry, you're wasting your time because there isn't a music industry. That does not mean you can't make music, and it does not mean you can't make a living out of music. It does not mean you can't be creative. You could still be all of those things. But the problem is that you cannot act like the music industry exists and that there is a way of accessing the music industry. Now, the fundamental, the fundamental message of this video will be that you may be working under the idea that there's a music industry there, and under the idea that if you do certain things, it will enable you to access the music industry. You may even be at music college studying all these things, and they might be telling you all these things that will access the music industry. Maybe some of you want to become session musicians. Maybe some of you want to become artists. Or maybe some of them just want to be in a good rock and roll band touring the world. But I'm here to tell you that those goals don't exist anymore, right? You have to readjust your view. You can do those things and they're fun, but you cannot expect to make a living out of fun. You have to make a living out of where a living exists. And I'm afraid in the last 20 years, where the money is, has changed completely. Now, you may have noticed I'm sat here. Oh, I'm not sat here, I'm stood here actually in my studio. And you can see I got this nice little backdrop. Let's just walk forward, shall we? In my studio, I have a photo studio. I have a place where I can take photographs. We have a green screen, we have a white screen, we have lights, we have all the things you need to shoot photographs. Why do I need that when I'm a musician? And then here, I have my recording studio. Okay? And you can see my recording studio. If you take it right there, so you can see a brilliant view of it. This is my recording studio. This is my record. But again, I've got lights. This room is full of lights, right? This room has been designed. Well, it hasn't been designed, actually. This room has been chosen by me because I can film from any angle, and hopefully it looks pretty cool. So I don't have to worry about camera angles. I've got natural light here. So I can film in natural light. This, more than anything, is almost like a media studio. It's like a TV studio. What have I got over here? I've got a table to have meetings, maybe film podcasts. I've got my turntable down here with vinyl. This has got lots of different places for me to be able to do what I do, right? Now, you're probably thinking you're very lucky to get this, and I am very lucky to get this. But the thing is, that has been my intention. My intention was to try and get somewhere like this so I could work as a modern musician, because over the last 5 or 10 years, I have realized that the industry has changed. And what is required are the sort of things that you've just seen. Now, what you've just seen are the accoutrements of the media industry, right? If you want to do music, it's the same as wanting to be a photographer or a journalist or a filmmaker or a podcaster or a YouTuber. You want access to the media industry, and you need to study the media industry and how that makes money. Now, the way the media industry makes money is by creating media that either people pay for, right, every month, or you sell advertising and you use the media to get a very specific effect, which people love in capitalist societies, is that you can sort of predict what the people would want to buy based upon what they are watching, which is very useful. Those are the two income streams. So put those at the forefront of your mind and forget about CD sales or t-shirt sales or ticket sales or any other things, royalties and all that stuff. Forget all that. That was the old way people made money. Now, those things are still there, but they are not at the center. The center of the media industry are the two things I just mentioned. And if you want to work as a musician, you are most likely going to have to identify an income stream that involves those two things. Okay? So why do musicians need to watch this video? I'll tell you why, because I imagine, and this is the message of the video, is that you are getting it wrong. And if you look at whatever you're doing, you will see that there's a bit of a problem there, because I would imagine that at the center of your creative pursuits, your goals, everything that you are aimed to try and do will be two things. It will either be joining a band that can get a record deal. In other words, you want to form a band that you can work with, get a record deal, and then they will look after becoming famous for you. Or you might be working towards getting a gig. You want to be in a band and you want to do loads of gigs and tour around and feel like you're living the rock and roll lifestyle because you turn up with a venue and in front of people and they're blowing lots of sunshine up your arse. Very understandable. That's a wonderful thing to do, right? But you don't get paid for things you like to do. People usually pay for things they like to do. That's the dream, isn't it? It's the dream. Or you might be working towards writing material to record for a demo, right? Now, if we take those three things, if you're trying to join a band, you'll find that what you will be doing is buying a whole bunch of equipment. So you're paying out now. You're paying into an industry. We could call it the music industry. People who buy equipment like this, right? You're paying in. And then once you're in that band, you're going to read all the magazines, you're going to go on all the YouTubes, and the advertising or buying the magazines will also pay for that, right? So you're still paying out. Then you might go down to a rehearsal room and there'll be an industry there of rehearsal rooms, and there'll be someone taking their money, working in what we used to call the music industry. Have you noticed a pattern here? If you're joining a band, you're not the owner of the business that makes the profit, that makes the money. You are a customer, right? So say you're working towards writing some material and going to get into a recording studio. You're going to do one of two things. You're either going to buy the equipment yourself so you can record at home, right? But that's going to cost you a lot of money. Now you're buying things like sound cards and microphones. You're paying into the industry. You're not extracting money out of it. Or you may go to your local recording studio and ask them, and they're going to have you in a hefty fee for a day's recording, right? And then they're going to mix it. All these people are working in it. If you notice, they're working in it, but they're not doing the things you're doing. They're doing other stuff, right? Now you may think, oh, that's Sandy's got a point there. Maybe I could do what they're doing, and that would somehow fund me doing these things I really want to do. But the trouble is that there will be people that are only doing that, and you'll be competing against them, and you'll be trying to do that and form a band and write songs and do gigs and book gigs and go out and do that stuff. And you will cut yourself too thin, right? And the people who are doing this full out will beat you, okay? So you've got to see the pattern that's going on here, okay? You've got to see the pattern that exists here. So what's the answer? Well, the thing is, you have to remove the idea that you're working towards, but working's a better metaphor, working towards making an album, booking some gigs, getting some t-shirts done, getting a logo, thinking of a band name. That has gone. That was what was required 30 years ago. It's no longer required. And on this video, I want to talk to you and tell you what I think you need to do. What you need to do is get rid of those goals. Don't try and get gigs, right? Don't try and write an album, get album artwork done. Don't try and join a band who's trying to get a record deal, because there's no more record deals and the record companies can't help you anymore, right? This is the things you need to do. Firstly, right, let's deal with the album. If you think in this day and age that you will be able to make a living by selling an album, when the general public can sign up to Spotify and get the whole recorded history of mankind for free, or sign up to Netflix and watch, surround sound, full HD films, unbelievable quality. They can go watch Game of Thrones or whatever it is, and they'll get hours and hours of incredible product. But they will get that for next to nothing. But what you want to do is get them to part cash with a CD, which will give them about an hour of music, which they can go and listen to for free. There is no model there. There is no market there for that. Now, I'm not saying you can't sell CDs. I sell CDs, but you have to understand that cannot be at the center of your business model. So forget working towards an album, forget working towards CDs, forget that. Gigs, right? If you go out and gig, it'll be one of two scenarios. There'll be some cruddy, horrible promoter somewhere that's approached you and said you can get a gig somewhere if you sell 10 tickets for him. He will put 5 bands on there. He will sell 10 tickets on each one. Then he will go to the venue and say, pay me 100 quid for getting 50 people in, and they'll pay him 100 quid. It's right at the bottom of the market. It's so dodgy. You could have done it anyway. Someone else is making the money instead of you. It's such a bad idea. Or you will go to the venue yourself, and the only reason why they're going to pay you any money at all is if you bring an audience in. Now, most bands, when they first form and they tell all their mates will come down the pub and watch them play their first gig, and it seems like a big success. But then that's done. They aren't going to keep turning up to your gigs. And then suddenly you realise nobody wants to come and see your gigs. You cannot gig unless there's an audience. And to make any money at all, you probably have to have some connection to the old legacy music industry. Okay? So gigging is a waste of time unless you've got an audience. Right? Joining a band that's trying to get a record deal. When you get the record deal, they won't pay for anything. It's not like the old days when they'll stick you in a house and stick you on a wage and they'll pay for your album to record it and they'll photographs. It's not like that. They're going to sign you because you already have a following, okay? So these goals are pointless and they will take you down the wrong route. And anybody who's doing this will be quite aware that I am right and you're going nowhere, okay? So let's go back to the model that is the media, all right? The media makes its money in 2 ways. You're either paying a subscription, so you're paying into Netflix or you're paying into Spotify monthly fee, right? Or you're making money through advertising. Now, because the media industry makes its money in that way, that structure is already in there and it's for yours for the taking. So, for example, if you want to create a subscription, the best way to do that would be to take a platform like Patreon, where you can have free members that can follow what you're doing. And if they like the content, then they can upgrade to paid members. And when they upgrade to paid members, then they can have different tiers and you can offer in all sorts of things. But the problem is, if you want to do this, and it is, I believe, fundamentally what every band should be trying to do, if you're going to do this, you've got to remember that you are now content creators. And it's hard to make content. I'm in that situation, which is why I have got a studio like this. Now, this studio is a right mess at the moment. I'm bringing a whole bunch of my other drums in. You can see but it's all here. It's all here. This is why I'm showing you. This place makes it easier for me to do this stuff. And the reason why I'm in here and I'm working with the charity that owns this, but they control this room, is because where I live, I want to be able to offer this room out to people in the community. I want them to be able to come out and say, Andy, can I do a podcast? And I want to be able to offer it for free. I don't know how that could be done, but I imagine it will be done by tapping in to those 2 income streams, from the money I make through Patreon and the money I make through YouTube. Now, in terms of Patreon, right, once you realize that exists, you realize you need to create content. And I would say you need content going in there every single day, right? So what should that content be? Well, some of it will be, it won't be that high quality, but it'll be high interest. If you've got something where you're producing a lot of media, it needs to be high interest, low quality, right? I'm filming this on an iPhone. I have made the stick that I'm holding this with out of an old microphone stand, right? And I have got no mics. So this video that you're watching, I have basically walked into this room, switched the lights on and started filming. I will not edit this video. Some of the videos I edit and they're higher quality, but as a general trend, I've tried to keep what I'm doing as easy and as low as I possibly can, but to pack it with information. So when somebody comes on, they go, actually, this is quite useful, right? And this is precisely what this video is. I know this video won't get the views. I know I should be on here saying, you know, what are the 10 greatest wigs in rock and roll, which I am working on at the moment, you know, and that will get way more views. But I'm doing this because I think this is important, right? There's a worth to it. So you need to know how you can create content, and you need to go away and think about that. Most bands, when you ask them that, they'll be like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I just want to make music. But the trouble is the music industry was never like that. For you to be a pop star, you had to conform to certain ideals. And if you didn't, you wouldn't get the deal. Now you have to be a content creator, and you've got to work ways of doing it out. And the truth is, if you want to be a success, you're going to have to come up with your own way of doing it, which is different to everybody else. You are going to have to be creative, right? You are going to have to be creative. So you are now creating content. On top of that, if you do release an album, all your patrons who've supported you are going to get that album for free. They're going to get offers. They're going to be involved. They're going to make suggestions. Now, how do you fill people up in that patron? Then what it becomes about is trying to identify audiences and drive them to your patron. Now then, it might be worthwhile to do a few gigs. But those gigs now have a reason, don't they? You're not going there to, you know, sell T-shirts or albums because you haven't got them. What you're going to do is that we've got a patron and we want you to go and join up if you like the band. You might be doing cover versions at that time. And then when you go to the patron, there might be videos of you telling your audience that have bought into you, this is what we want to do. This is where we want to go. This is how you can help us. That first wave of audience are your friends, and you need to relate to them heavily. They're the ones who are going to get you there. That is a very important thing to realize. Okay, you'll start to rely on those hardcore fans. They will be very important in the grand scheme of things to you. Okay, so I will tell you how I think you could drive people to your Patreon, right? You would do this. You need to write a ton of songs, but not record them. You don't gig them. You live with them. You work with people outside, because in the old days I had producers, and you pick the best songs you've got, and then you go into a recording studio and you pay a producer who is used to delivering stuff to the industry, not a producer used to making people happy who want a demo done. There's two types of producers. Any producer who's delivered stuff to a record company will be able to deliver something that is sellable. So you take your best song in, you record it, and then you need to film a video, right? The video doesn't have to tell a story. The video doesn't have to do anything fancy. What it does is it has to showcase you in a very good light. It could be weird and wacky. It could be very professional and slick. Then you stick that up onto YouTube, onto Instagram, onto TikTok, onto your Facebook, anywhere that you want to put it, you now put it, right? That video's there, and that video has to do the job. You need one song, and then you go out and you drive people to that. People discover you, they start Googling you, they go to that video. Now, when I've worked with bands that have done this, that first video usually nets, if it's been done properly, right? And this is why this video started off with me in a photo studio. This is so much more important. The visual, I'm afraid, is more important than the music. The visual's going to get people first. It's going to pull them in. And once you've grabbed them, they will buy into the music, right? So that video, if you do it right, and I want to be able to tell you how to do it right on this channel, it should get you around about 5,000 views, which on Patreon might net you possibly 10 patrons. Now, those patrons will be paying in $5, say, a month, or £5 if you're in the UK. That first month goes by, you've now got $50. The second month goes by, you've now got $100. The amount of bands I've worked with this, and they've set the Patreon up and then haven't listened to me. They haven't seen that as being the main thing. So they've been putting their heads down, doing all this stuff, but feeding the Patreon because they see it as an additional thing. And then suddenly 6 months down the line, they suddenly realise that they've got well, what's that, 50 times, well, 50 times 10 would be 500. So 10 months down the line, they got $500. So what would 6 months down the line? It would be less, but it would still be a reasonable amount that you could spend on making videos now, or marketing, or all sorts of stuff, you see. But the mistake to make is to think of the Patreon as somehow driving your fans somewhere else. If you pull the Patreon off, right, and you've suddenly got 100 fans, and they are now paying $10 in on average, and you're netting $1,000 a month, you're done. That's way better than any album sales have ever done. You don't need to make an album. You can if you want, and you can probably afford to do it, but you'll be doing it because it's something you creatively want to do. You won't be, kidding yourself that there's some sort of wage or living out of that. Okay? Next thing is you can make your money through ad revenue. Now, musicians are very keen to knock Spotify, but Spotify pays around about 60% of the ad revenue. If you're doing 2,000 or 3,000 listens a month, that's nothing, right? Now, the reason it's nothing is not because Spotify is conning you, it's because your track is 2 or 3 minutes long, right? And there's not enough adverts in that time, right? To make money from ad revenue, you have to have stuff that goes on for a long time, right? So you'll be much better, say, putting up a live concert that lasts for an hour. In there could be, 10 adverts. And if you were to do 100,000 views on that, which is possible, that would be netting you around about £500 for each, or $500. And that's an underestimate. Right, so say you've got those, if you start to work that and add that together, and of course, once that stuff is up there, every time somebody listens to it or watches it, you will make more money. Now, you can also use Patreon to sell digital goods, right? So you can sell things like that concert as well online. You could have half the concert up on YouTube and people could watch that, you get the ad revenue, but you could watch the full concert at your Patreon and people would have to pay to watch that. And they wouldn't have to become a patron. Now, in terms of, music sales, Bandcamp is just brilliant, and it does both. You will get the streaming revenue from it, right? And it will go directly to you. That's what's great. It's not like a bizarre split, that you would get. You will get the direct streaming revenue for you. But it's virtually nothing. It doesn't. Bandcamp, you don't get the streaming revenue. What you do is you curb the streaming revenue. So if somebody wants to stream it, they have to buy your specific track. And that's how it differs from Spotify, where Spotify, you go into Spotify, you can just listen to everything forever. And that may get people, if they want to stream it, to put some money in and buy it, and they'll buy it for a certain amount of time, or they'll buy it forever or whatever. Also, you could have a subscription on Bandcamp, and on Bandcamp, you could sell physical goods. Now, once you have a following, if you have got 100,000 people who are your fans, you then can sell any product, and we can lump in CDs and T-shirts into that. But you can sell keyrings. Don't think the CD's somehow special, and you will find that the profit margin on keyrings or T-shirts will be much higher than the CD, right? So the whole point here, I'm telling you on this video, is if you're a band, you need to put a number of things at the center of what you are doing. You need to have tracks up online that people can listen to. But the main thing you need is a YouTube, and that YouTube has to have long form content. What could that be? I don't know. The problem is here, you need to get creative. That's the problem. Bands are all doing exactly the same thing. They're all conforming. There's no interest there. You have to think, what could we as a band do that will be interesting? Look at Snarky Puppy. What did they do? They found a lovely studio, put a load of people on headphones that looked really trendy, and then captured the band performing live. And they captured that moment when something's happening and it's sold to people. Look what bands have done. Look at the bands that are out there that are making money. Take someone like Adam Neely, who did an excellent music education site and is now attracted a whole bunch of musos who watch his channel, and he now has his, is it Sungazer, his band, and he's out touring that. He never wanted to be a YouTuber, but he can now do it because he created his audience through that way. My message to musicians is stop trying to make albums, stop trying to do gigs, and look at the structure of what you're doing and move over to seeing primarily Patreon. Patreon theoretically could provide a living for a band very easily. And then once you're in that position and you do start to get a fan base, right, and you can afford to do one gig that maybe 20 people will turn up but they will pay 22 quid a ticket that you sold through your own links, so that 20 people walk in and you get 400 quid, which pays for you to do the gig, pays for your rehearsals, right? The Patreon is key. Once you get to that point, you can do that. But I promise you, once you've done that gig, you won't be able to do another gig for a year. You've got to do more work. It's a slow trudge to success. Now, this video is actually the introduction to a whole bunch of ideas. I know I talk about music on here, but on a Sunday, I am opening up an educational aspect of this channel. Right, these videos aren't getting the views, so you can like this and share, because I am imparting some information that will work. I have done this with bands for a number of years, and I think I know how it works. And then the last 3 years of running my YouTube and the Patreon, I now have an idea of how that works and how you need to approach that. Right. This video is come out on Tuesday. On Tuesday and Thursday, I put out more left field videos, more experimental videos that are maybe shorter, aren't hitting the clickbait stuff. I've got some real clickbaity videos that will be coming out on Wednesday and Friday this week, and that will pay for me to be here. But this will not pay. This will not be a big viewer. Unless something goes crazy, and that does happen on YouTube, right? But this will come out on Tuesday. There will be no premiere. No one will know about it. It'll just have appeared. And then on this Thursday, I am going to make a big announcement, a very big announcement on this channel, which relates to what I've been talking about today. And it will be of interest to anybody who is interested in the sort of music I play, or the sort of music that I cover on this channel, or musicians that want more information about how to break out the cycle of going nowhere because they still think it's 1995, and those methods will work now, but they won't. Anyway, nice little short video for you. I hope that helped. I didn't want to go into too much detail. I'm sure you're sat there thinking, well, how do we make a good video and how do we drive people to Patreon? I can tell you how to do that, but it's complex. Right, some of you might be at music college. I'll finish here. I've been knocking music colleges. I don't think they're helping. Right, music colleges are always 5 or 6 years behind what's actually going on in the industry. Right, when everybody was learning Logic, the industry was using Pro Tools. Right, this has always gone on. Right, the staff that work there, they learned how to. I know this because I was one of these. You learn how to do it on the job in the 90s or the early 2000s. You know how that works, and then you go in, you get a job, you got your nice little mortgage paid for, and you don't really know what's going on in the music industry anymore. It's lagging behind, and it didn't used to matter, but we've gone through a huge cultural change. We've gone through this huge cultural change, and the music colleges are not set up to tell you what you need to do. I got out of music college a couple of years ago, and I've had to make my living out of YouTube and Patreon and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I've had to work it out, and now I am. And partly the reason why I'm walking around this studio is to try and show you the structure that I have put in for myself to be able to do this. And you might be asking, how? How do you do this? Well, if you want to know, you need to pay me. Get over to Patreon, become a member, and send me a message. I would love Patreon to be filled with 500 people that are all paying, and then I could do this all day long, like a new online college that actually teaches you proper stuff, pulling in fans of the channel who would be able to come in and tell you what it's like to be working at the top of the music industry. I did a live stream with Martin Miller the other day, when we talked about he's a YouTuber that's way more successful than me. We talked about the problems, these sort of problems. I've been chatting to the music producer, Matt Tavares, who's worked with Kendrick Lamar and Taylor Swift. And these people are out there, they will help. But we have to put a structure in. Now, This room, even though I am now making my money as a YouTuber, I could not afford this room. Since I've come in here, there's been a link down below to their charity, the Jellyman's Arts Heritage Charity. Very kindly, people have been throwing a few dollars or pounds into that PayPal tip jar below, and they've been very pleased. So at the moment, I am being able to use this room on the provision that I can use it in the future for the community, which is my intention. But they have been basically helping me out because of the PayPal tip jar. This is a wonderful thing. I would love to be able to get off the ground and for them to be replenished, not just by my rent, but by actually the support from people out there that are interested in supporting creative music and are getting something out of their support. So if you could put a little bit of money into that PayPal tip jar down below, that would be great. You'll have noticed that I also have my own PayPal tip jar, and that supports me doing this. And so if you could put some money in there, that would be great. Obviously, like the video, subscribe. And if you want to come over and become a patron, and if you want to find out more about this, I am quite happy to spend all day covering the details, which I'm not going to be doing on this channel. I could go do a whole hour video on cheap ways of creating a music video that will pull an audience in, right? And if you go on my YouTube, you will see some very, very cheap music promo videos for my music. But I do make a small income out of my music over on Bandcamp. And I don't push it particularly, but it's there. I can help. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm still doing it. And if you want to do it, right, if you want to do it, then you need to engage. And I'm putting myself out there now. Come on. Oh, I need it. Come on, come on, come on. Right, I think we do. I should end up where I started, really. Sat there like that. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one.